Hey, what's up? I hope you're doing good right about now, but if not, then just know that I'm sending well wishes your way. On today's installment of OC Overview, we are going to be looking into the life and times of Tamiel Lovelace. A little bit of a departure from the last video about Theo, as that video focused more on their present rather than their past. This one will be covering Tamiel's history leading up to the present, delving into their backstory and their origins. I've actually drawn Tamiel a grand total of 2 other times in this channel's history, and while certain aspects of their backstory have remained the same, I've largely overhauled their story after I finished my lore compendium in early 2024. Oh, and before I forget, please turn on your closed captions if you would like to fully understand what I'm saying. I use a lot of weird spelling words courtesy of my fantasy world building, so the captions will help clear up spelling and stuff. So, about Tamiel. Tamiel Lovelace is an angel. The first angel, actually. After creating the world and the first generation of gods, the Luna, the almighty and the highest of celestial beings, decided that they were going to create emissaries that could help them to better communicate with the young gods, allowing them to govern Luna without descending from their heavenly abodes. Tamiel was woven from stardust and dreams, and this is kind of where my current version deviates from the original because I axed the wings from Tamiel's design, thereby divorcing them from the traditional concept of what an angel might look like. Originally, they had a magnificent set of wings like traditional angels do. But as I overhauled the world lore of Maraluna, I realized that them having wings would not make sense because they were the emissary of the cycle of life and death. They didn't need to fly, they just needed to be able to traverse the mortal realm and the realm beyond, which they could do without wings. So I decided I would save those wings for one of the other angels, preferably one who oversees the governance of the sky. By the way, if you can hear a cat in the background, that's Charlie this time, not the kittens. So say hello, Charlie. He say hi. There we go. Apart from their pale blue skin, another defining feature of Tamiel is their third eye. All 8 of the angels... God, I had to look that up on my compendium. I've forgotten how many of them there are. Anyway, all 8 of them have a third eye. This served as their binding connection to the Luna, with the third eye being the main way for them to view life on Earth through the angels. Now, all of this was an era ago. Tamiel has long since severed their ties with the Luna, though according to rumor, they've been visiting Minaraja, which could indicate that they are at least on speaking terms with Mina, the youngest of the moons. They currently reside in Nethervane and serve as a consultant to the board of directors of the Cientha Nawana, which, if you've watched my last video, is the academic guild that oversees educational institutions in the lower realm. Theo and Tamiel are actually... well, I wouldn't say they're friends. Tamiel is more of a babysitter to Theo than anything else. They kind of serve as a voice of reason, where Theo relies purely on impulse and emotions. Tamiel has to step in every now and again to make sure that she's not about to charge into a professor's lecture to fire them on the spot in front of a whole class for allegations of, let's say, inappropriate behavior towards their students. So they're always working overtime to make sure that Theo is... Yes, baby! Yes, Charlie! Hi, Charlie. Anyway. So, yeah, Tamiel is there to keep Theo from doing anything too rash. So, about Tamiel's design. Tamiel's overall appearance is heavily rooted in ancient Greek and Roman aesthetics, So I was trying to kind of do a modern take on a traditional Greek chiton. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But looking at it now, the colors kind of make it look like an Indian sari instead. I totally didn't mean for it to look like that. I think it's the red and the gold. I swear I was using references, but it still ended up a little weird. When I first drew Tamiel, they looked like this. I designed them with the core concept of creating a death angel, though to be honest, nothing about this design really indicates that they're an angel of any sort. I think I was pulling on the angel designs from the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona games, because the sheer black dress and the eye bandages are really harkening back to those particular images. That's another thing about Tamiel that you ought to know, is that they're nearly completely blind. You might have noticed that they're holding a white cane in these portraits, and that's because they're partially blind in both eyes and completely blind in their third eye. This is because when they were cast out of heaven, they were met with such a furious flash of divine white light that it completely blinded them. In the beginning, when they first took to living in the middle realm, they used their crudely made crook to get around, if only for sentimental purposes. This is also not intentional, but the gladiator sandals that I gave them also kind of look like leg braces. Like, they don't look quite right, they lack the padding and the overall structure of a true leg brace, but I can see why someone might mistake it for that. Tamiel doesn't have any issue with their legs though, just to be clear. Tamiel also incorporates hints of gold in their design, something that can be attributed to their time spent with the young gods, or the progenitors as they are called. The gods were fond of gold. They used it in their jewelry and as thread to embroider their clothing. Apart from their golden accessories, Tamiel's chiton has embroidered detailing that is nearly a one-for-one copy of the detailing on a certain god's ceremonial robes. By now you've probably also noticed another very prominent part of Tamiel's design, the pink scarf that they're always wearing around their neck. I don't know how much I want to give away about this part of their backstory, because in terms of official lore, this story isn't something that anybody outside of the Trea Luna and the Angelic Constellation are aware of. It's a story that's been lost to time, stricken from the records of history and purposely forgotten following Tamiel's fall from heaven. It's probably worth saying though that Tamiel doesn't really keep this part of their story a secret. If you only knew what questions to ask, they would likely give you a straightforward answer. They don't really see this part of their history as something to be ashamed of, or something that needs to be hidden. That being said, I think it's okay for me to reveal that the scarf was actually owned by their lover, a young god by the name of Sinta. After they were cast out of heaven, Sinta took care of Tamiel and helped them adjust to life on Earth. Together, the two of them roamed the mortal realm, trying to figure out what to do after Tamiel was cast out. Eventually, they stumbled upon the lower realm, and that's where they've resided since then. Or, well, that's where Tamiel has resided anyhow. Sinta's story met with an abrupt end, but he isn't the focus of this video, so I'll save that for another time. During their time in Nethervane, Tamiel became a student of the Lyceum, though back then the university went by a different name. Under the tutelage of several incredibly skilled elders, Tamiel learned the art of Geromancy and Pay-Energy, offensive magic and healing magic, which they made extensive use of during the Great War between the Lower Realm and the Middle Realm. I won't get too into this Great War, though it does admittedly play a big role in Tamiel's backstory, but I'm going to save that either for another video or for a novelette, because that's the goal here, actually writing all of these ideas down into long-form stories, but I digress. for their design elements prior to their fall, I tried to channel some more of those ancient Greek aesthetics, though I'm not sure if I managed to emulate that all that well, to be honest. I did my best though. I referenced ancient Greek togas for their pre-fall outfit, though looking at it now, the version I drew them in carries a sort of feminine silhouette, which isn't really a bad thing, it just wasn't what I was fully intending when I went into their design. I also wanted to make it white in the beginning, but it didn't really jive well with all the long hair. There were too many areas where the clothing and the hair intersected, which would have been a pain in the ass to try and delineate, at least for me. I probably could have done a bit more rendering to make sure that the colors weren't blurring together, but to be honest, I like my doodles flat and unrendered. And also, I'm bad at rendering, so I don't do it as often as I used to, So that's really it for my overview of Tamiel. I still have a bit more time left, so I'm trying to figure out if I want to talk about the Great War, but actually, I really do want to save it for another video, so I'm not gonna talk at length about it because it's its own topic. Instead, I'll go into what was particularly difficult about designing Tamiel, and that's the color palette. I'm not very good at balancing colors. I'm good at monochrome palettes and palettes that have little to no contrast, so trying to balance all these colors, the blues and the pinks and the gold especially, the gold detailing really messed with me. I debated adding it. I wasn't going to, it was a last minute addition, but I decided that their chiton looked a little too plain, and also I like giving my characters patterns to go off rather, to delineate them from one another. So to differentiate them from one another, I like giving them specific patterns that would indicate one from the other, that would differentiate one from the other. And yeah, the color really threw me in for a loop. I tried to use as many colors as I possibly could do, which is not a lot. I usually do about 3 colors, two colors actually. I only usually use about 2 colors and then just use varying shades of it in my designs, but I wanted to go a little out of my comfort zone for Tamiel. I will say that even before I started designing their modern design, I already had this idea of like them having this pink and blue color scheme going on, so there's that. So anyway, here are the finished pieces for Tamiel. Here's their character sheet with their relevant information, and here is their sketches. So thank you for stopping by, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye!